I've been studying how Hollywood makes blockbuster movies because I believe our software demonstrations should be blockbusters as well. Imagine if your next software demonstration prospects leaned in with interest from the very start. They were captivated all the way through, and at the end they went, wow, that's good. That's a blockbuster demo, and it can be done. Let's listen to some of the things I've been learning from Hollywood screenplay artists, directors, actors, and even a violinist.
When doing the research for Grays, I sat with the surgical resident. She gave me a ton of information. I just absorbed everything she had to tell me about what her life was like. Then I went away and I sat down and I thought about what I wanted my story to be. That brought up a lot of questions. How many hours did they work? What would you do if you wanted to go on a date? Like if you had been working that many hours and you wanted to leave and go on a date from work, where did you get ready? If you slept there, where did you keep your stuff? What happened to residents who were, like I just asked things like, what happened to residents who were pregnant? Did a pregnant resident work all the way through? Just all of the things that just came up in my mind as I was talking to her. But then also questions that felt very specific to the story. If you messed up as a surgeon, what happened? Did people make fun of each other? How competitive was it? What did the world feel like? Where did they all hang out? How often did they get to sleep? Like all of those little questions that end up being pieces of the world that you saw.
Most directors will tell you that, you know, your movie is really built on a handful. Some would say 3, some say 5, some say 7. But these highlight scenes, well, you know, in thinking about them, in watching movies, they're usually, you know, payoffs to a sequence. Billy Wilder said you have to understand the 5 important scenes and then you have to know how to build to them. Well, to me, it's about building a great sequence. Steven Spielberg is one of the great sequence builders that I've ever seen. He naturally knows how to, you know, create so much excitement, tension, mystery, whatever it is that he's trying to achieve, emotion, and then, you know, and let it reach, you know, a kind of a climax. And so during the course of a movie, there's not just one at the end. There's supposed to be, you know, I think a lot of ups and downs, a lot of spikes, and it's the director's job to identify it and make sure that you don't underplay, and that also you, in the aftermath of one of those moments, that you maybe give the audience a breath. You understand that you've just completed one sequence with its own climax, and now, you know, you just like coming to, you know, chapter 7, you have just a moment as an audience to collect yourself and, you know, wonder what's going to happen next, and then move into it with the character.
Right now, I love being concise. I really like I say, having that material to land on, being clean, being clear. When I say clean, I don't mean not dirty. I mean clean lines, clean everything. And I like the precision. There's a quote that I read when I was in college by E.E. Cummings. And he was talking about being a poet. And he said, people ask me why I'm a poet. And I said, like the vaudeville comedian, I enjoy that precision that creates movement. And I looked at it, and I read it, and I thought, what does that mean? What does that mean? precision creating movement. And then, 25 years later, I started to understand it, that the more precise you are, the less air, the less moments where nothing is happening. Precision leads you inexorably to the next moment. And eventually you're going moment to moment to moment, and you're creating movement for the audience. The thing that gets you precise is performance experience. And suddenly you're not thinking, oh, what comes next? Which can be done if it's done as part of your performance. So those are always asides. I want you to know, always asides. There are always exceptions. But basically, the experience, and you start saying that line, and now you've said that line 100 times, and subtly, it's becoming precise, where the consonants and the vowels are falling in place, and you're aware of the audience. You hear a noise over there that might distract. You hesitate that nanosecond before you say the next syllable so the audience can hear it. It's just a gathering of information and treating your work not as going from joke to joke to joke, but as a whole.
When you come face to face with yourself and you look for your flaws and you try to fix them yourself, it's a really intimidating process. It can be very discouraging. So I do think it's important that people feel like there is a community of practicers out there and we're all going through the same process. But I've learned over the years that just because you're having a tough day doesn't mean you're not making progress. The tough days are actually when you're making the most progress because you're trying the most things. You're pushing against that wall that you haven't broken through before, and eventually you will break through because you're pushing against it.
So here's my big takeaway from what you just listened to. Practice, drill, rehearse. You've got to know your stuff. This is not a dress rehearsal when we're giving our demonstration. We're on stage. And the difference for us is we don't have an editing room. In Hollywood, after the shoot, they can go fine-tune the whole movie. In your software demonstration, you're on stage, you got one shot, one take to make it right. So for your next demonstration, how are you going to make sure that your one take is a blockbuster?